And welcome back to another episode of the Real Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jacob O'Connor. Real Conversations is a podcast for those dedicated to doing hard things and living a meaningful life. Today, back in the podcast for the second time, her first episode was number 72, if I remember correctly, Karolina. How you doing?
Hi, how are you? Good to be back.
I know, I'm excited. You made a comment while I was setting up of 8 a.m. again, and technically it was 8:30, but I appreciate you always being ready to go on a Saturday morning.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't show up here at 7:30, actually. So 8:30, it's good. You know, Monday or Sunday, I'm always up early. It's just last time we started at 8, right? So
Something like that.
Yeah, and I'm like, gosh, but it's okay. It's good to have you back. I'm really looking forward to hard conversations.
Yeah, we were talking for like almost 30 minutes beforehand, and I was just like, we need to just start recording, turn the camera on, get the mic set up, and then we'll just, because it was all stuff pertaining to what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because I haven't seen you in probably 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, I think last time we just did wasn't it the last run we did with Evan?
No, the last time I saw you was the podcast.
Oh,
which I do an episode a week. That was 72. This is 107. So put me on the spot with my math. That's 35 episodes. So that'd be 35 weeks ago.
I was still in school, didn't I? Or just finished?
Yeah,
I think just finished.
Just finished. But regardless, so I haven't seen you in that long of a time. And then within 10 minutes of me being here, you had me on the floor already stretching. So I just think that's a testament to like who you are and just like straight to business every time.
Yeah, we did a couple stretches. That was good.
Yeah. Karolina, why don't you give them just a little bit of your background, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
What do you want to know about me?
Well, I mean, you run ultramarathons. You got a master's pertaining to something directly relevant to running ultramarathons. You do a lot of research and study, and just like you're super well versed when it comes to doing physical, difficult endurance events. Yeah.
So I haven't been doing this for a very long time. First time I put my running shoes, it was in 2015. So, you know, I ran my first marathon in 2016. But once I got into it, became like the next step. And I am well known for jumping into extremes pretty fast. Like, I don't know how to balance it really well. But I've been running, you know, longer distances for a few years, and, you know, some years are a little bit better than others. But I'm very interested in human performance, injuries, motivation, and what really allows us to do such hard things.
All those things that I find fascinating. What was your master's again?
It was in exercise science.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's where you did the research study on ultramarathon runners, was for that master's degree?
Correct. Yes, it was my thesis. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah.
I just came back from American Sport Medicine conference that was in Boston.
Oh.
Yeah, so I went to represent my thesis, my study. Thanks to my chair, he's like, you should go represent the study. And I did, and I'm really glad I went there. It was a national conference, and I had a chance to meet really, really excellent, good people.
Okay.
Talk a lot about sports, medicine, you know, ultramarathoners, and because it's it's hard to study ultramarathoners. It really is because of the diversity. And I really don't see that improving. It will continue to be hard to study them. Mm-hmm. But seems like researchers are really starting to minimum just create some kind of baseline. You know, there is no baseline. So we have to create it.
What is it? What is that baseline approximating? Like, what's it starting to look like?
So the more studies are being done, we at least have a baseline of, you know, body compositions, the performance, you know, perhaps just overall measurements of how ultramarathoners' body look like. Mm-hmm. We don't have that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so unique because, you know, also keep in mind studying ultramarathoners that do mountain races versus Midwest, you get completely different results too.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help either.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that actually because Evan is out fighting fires in Colorado right now, and I can't remember exactly what it was, if he drove past it or rode his bike or something, but he was by the Leadville 100 trail.
Yeah.
And Leadville 100, if you're not familiar, that elevation, you're literally running in the mountains for 100 miles, and that compared to like the Tunnel Hill 100, which is completely flat through Illinois, two different races entirely.
Yeah. Oh, and you can't even, compare those runners that trains for both races. I tried to do Tunnel One. My first attempt to do Tunnel 50 was a completely fail. And by mile 36, I said, never, ever will I again do flat race.
Really?
I am not meant for flat races.
What is different in your eyes?
They're the same motion. It's just my hips couldn't hold it. Like, imagine, like, you would run 100 miles with the same motion. Like, there is no variation in your body movements, your legs, muscles. You just run. So eventually, your hips just start locking. And my hips just locked. I couldn't even, no, never again.
Yeah, I did the Tunnel Hill 50. I did not have that experience, but I don't know. I feel like I prefer flat almost more than super trail and hilly.
Yeah.
That's a solid no from you.
I would rather, I'm much better at running up the hills, down the hills, through harder terrains, navigating. My body seems enjoying it more.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think one of the things that people get confused by, I texted this to you as well, is like there's a lot of concern about injury with ultramarathons, and you've done a lot of research into like recovery. And one of the things that I've been curious about is like perceived injury versus real actual injury. Like if you go out for a 20-mile race, or if you're going out to do a 50-mile ultramarathon or 100, I feel like there's always a point during that event or race where you feel like, oh, something's really wrong. Like something's really off. And then you come out of it and 48 hours later, like you're sore, but turns out that there was nothing that was actually wrong. And it's like, what is that? Why does that happen? Like, how do you know when you're actually injured?
You don't. It's a hard one. When I did my first 100 miles, it was Leadville 100. And
that was your first?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you.
I don't know if I realized that. That's brutal.
Yeah. So, and I had a lot of people coming and telling me I will not gonna finish.
Great friends.
I know, right, man? And they actually, my really good friends, so that was a great fuel.
Yeah.
And I did finish. But at mile maybe 80, I was coming down a hill from the power lines, and I was in so much pain. My knee and my muscle was hurting so much, and I had such a sharp pain. I truly, truly thought I tear my muscle.
And like your quad? Mm-hmm. Ooh.
It was just like a knife stabbing. And I was crying. And I really thought that I tore my muscle, like period. I'm just like, the pain was so severe. But I still kept on going.
Yeah.
I figure I will just deal it after I'll finish. So for me, the race was more important than just pampering myself. You also have to, maybe, it requires really understand and know your body. Mm-hmm. When I did my 100 miles, I definitely didn't know my body because I didn't know that you can go through so much pain and actually not to be injured. It just purely was overused. The next day I woke up and I was fine. I mean, I was sore, like tight, but that sharp pain was gone. That's how I knew that it was just purely the pounding and that just surviving those 24 hours.
Yeah. And when you say know your body, that's something that I'm really trying to get better at, because every time that I haven't made it 100 miles, it's like there's been something that I can attribute to. Like the last time, the arch in my left foot was so inflamed to feel like I was stepping on a knife by the time I got to mile 80. And I was like, oh, this is definitely plantar fasciitis. Maybe I tore something. Like something is for certain wrong. And then it did take a minute, but within a week or two, I was back to running and no pain. And so it's more like, okay, I probably needed to stretch better during my training period and during the race. And maybe there was some other ancillary muscle that I should have been building up or taking care of. So it was more like of preventative measures that should have been taken. And there was no real injury there. And that was crazy to me, because I remember how bad that pain was. And then the fact that I run completely pain-free now, it's like, how is that even possible?
Yeah. It's very different to the overused injury and the actual injury. It doesn't just happen, or at least it rarely just happens immediately, unexpectedly and sudden, right? It's a lot of times you either already going into a race pre-injured, which is extremely common because people are overtraining.
And stubborn. We're a very stubborn group.
I'm a big believer, and I always advocate high mileage not going to make you stronger, period.
Yep.
When you do 100 miles and the last 15, 20 miles, what's going to help you to really finish it is what you do additionally to running when you train. So just the fact that you added an extra 20 miles during your training, that's not going to pull you through. What's going to pull you through is the actual strength and conditioning that you did.
I can testify to this. So I just put together this weekend a spreadsheet. Really love spreadsheets lately. I put together my training plan from now until November 9th or something for the Tunnel Hill 100, because that's when I'm shooting to go do my 100 miler. And I've worked up to about 20 miles a week right now. So real low mileage, but I want to make sure that I'm not getting injured during this training period. So the rule of thumb I followed was add 10% each week, and then every third or fourth week, reduce the mileage back by 20% just to allow my body to catch up. And so the way the numbers worked out, my peak week was 104 miles. And I sent that to Karolina, and she was like, why? Why would you even do that much? And I was like, oh, I thought that you wanted to get to 100. I had no clue that the importance of lifting rather than adding on additional mileage once you get into those peak weeks.
If it's going to make you feel better, I have to tell you, when I trained for my 200-mile race, my highest peak was 90 miles.
Okay.
Here's the thing. You don't want to overexhaust your body.
Right.
Going into a race. You only should be doing 100 miles per week is only if running is your full-time job.
Yeah.
All you do is run, and you actually get paid for it, which I'm talking about elite ultramarathoners that does, hard stuff and in front of a lines. For us, people that have our obligations, and running is really just our hobby, not our, job, you do have to take in consideration of our obligations we have day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of those runners that running 100 miles per week and actually, is their full-time job, they do so much strength and conditioning.
Mm-hmm. And also recovery. We can't, or you and I speaking in our situation, we can't afford to spend half the time that they are strength, conditioning, and recovery on top of that high mileage.
Yeah. Instead of focusing on a high mileages, I would focus how you can spend that extra 2-3 hours that you would be pounding and getting pre-injured to really strength and conditioning. I cannot emphasize enough. When I did my 200 miles, okay, maybe it's not for everyone, but it really worked well for me. I stopped running my peak and I came down, and I just taped 3.5 weeks before the race. So I went cold turkey 3.5 weeks before the race.
Wait, no running at all?
That's it.
So that's not even a taper. Traditionally, you just lower mileage until you get down to 20 or
that's
10.
That's it. So I did, 80 85. I do by 5 mile increments.
Okay.
80, 85, 90, 90, 85. And I start going down 80, 70, 60, 50. And that's where I just stopped for 3.5 weeks. And all I did through those 3.5 weeks, strength and conditioning and stretching. And I have to say that race was one of my best performance I ever had with zero pain.
So what strength and conditioning are you doing? Like what actual exercises?
So I do invest a lot in lower core, glutes and quads.
Glutes and quads. You need to get that like trademarked and tattooed on you.
Glutes and quads. Everyone knows, when people come to me, it's like, oh, my knee bobbers. I'm like, glutes and quads. It's the same with cramping. I'm really big advocate for mustard.
Yeah.
I tried to do one ultra with Jay Adori, and the race director literally bought mustard because they knew I will be there.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I love mustard. It always keeps me out of trouble. There is really no good science behind this. Mustard helps with cramping, but there is something about turmeric that, helps. I also like the salt intake that mustard provides. Anyway, so just small stuff. I swear by it. It really works well. And people that did try also, like, it worked well, so people like to overcomplicate. Like fancy stuff, what is the newest stuff? Seems like there is taking supplements going to help them, just to buy, just to spend. And sometimes you just have to open the refrigerator and just see what you have already.
Yeah. And to be honest, I'm one of those people that likes to look at the new stuff and likes to use the supplements. Evan, my cousin's the same way. But I've had to make a financial decision. After like Tunnel Hill, I was doing the endurance gels the whole time. It's like that really starts to add up. And plus it starts to hurt your stomach too. And I've actually found that, and I mentioned this last episode, I prefer just doing whole foods, like going grabbing English muffin with peanut butter, banana, and honey. Like that, it's not only cheaper, more cost effective, but it sits better for me too.
Yeah. I cannot take gels, through the races.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, first of all, it's just too sweet for me.
Yeah.
Oh, I cannot. I cannot do that. So, I am, maybe because I'm a little bit old school, but I just don't see that excitement about the new stuff. Like if you would look the way I pack for ultramarathons or like what I eat, it's nothing fancy, pretty much whole foods. I only eat whole foods. I don't take any powders. I don't take anything,
No electrolytes? Like no electrolyte packets or drinks?
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's bold.
I do a lot of Gatorade. That helps for me.
You said Gatorade? Mm-hmm.
That's why I supplement. I think because it's just who I am. If I go to the doctor and they say, hey, you're anemic, which I've been anemic all my life, actually. I'm the healthiest I ever been in my life. But when I was young, I always was anemic. And a couple of years ago, I kind of was on an edge. Like every time I take my blood test done, I'm just barely hanging on that low normal, just like barely hanging all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just normal me. But when the doctor said, oh, you're anemic, maybe you want to take supplements. I'm like, give me a couple of weeks. I go to the grocery store, I get some beets, just like steaks, couple of weeks, and I'm solid, back to normal.
You figured it out.
I figured it out because there is nothing more healthier than, turning into beets, or meat. I'm on an edge to give up on a meat,
Are you? No.
I mean, I just... So I stopped buying meat from grocery stores, right? Period. Yeah. I don't buy from grocery stores. I only buy from... We have a store that only sells meat from local Missouri farmers. Like
grass-fed farms?
Yeah, really local small farmers. So that's the only time I buy meat. It's been bugging me. It's been a struggle. I do understand. I feel completely different when I have a steak. It's hard. I don't know when. I know I will give up eventually. It's just running ultra marathons. I really struggle to get enough calories without meat.
Yeah. Well, you know who you know who's a really good ultramarathon that swears by the vegan diet? Do you know who Harvey Lewis is?
Probably not.
Okay, Harvey
I
Lewis.
suck about following his all fancy names. I really suck at it.
Well, you're going to like this guy. Let me give you a little bit of background here. So, context, should be coming on the podcast. We had it scheduled, but he's off doing like the national ultramarathon races or whatever. So after that, he's supposed to come on the podcast. But there's a backyard style event where it's last man standing. So for those that don't know, that's typically a 4-mile loop. And there's no time limit. There's no distance limit. It's just the last person to complete the loop wins the race.
You just run until you drop dead.
Yes, you run until you drop dead pretty much. And so he was last year at like the most famous, popular backyard ultramarathon event, set a new world record. He ran, I don't think this is incorrect, 413 miles.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Sorry.
413 miles nonstop.
Yeah, I got some messages from my friends. So I'm not a big in like following big races and stuff, like when it's happening. But my friends, I just kept sending. I'm like, look at this. So yes, I do know what you're talking about. Now that you said it, yes.
So he swears by the vegan diet though.
I don't disagree. It's a hard decision. For me, the biggest, I think, like what really bothers me is I'm a big advocate for animal abuse, and it's gonna happen. I don't know when.
Yep.
It's just for me the hardest part is when I train for the ultra marathons, and then I come back home tired. And I'm not big into like sitting and cooking for 2 hours because when you are vegan, it does require to be creative with food, right?
Yeah.
I tried plant-based diet maybe 4 or 5 years ago. All I ate was broccoli, crackers, and so it's just like you only can eat so much crackers, right? But now there is more like restaurants have all these options. So when I go out to eat, I mostly choose like vegan option.
Yep.
I love that, right? But I'm not going to deny that sometimes when I feel really tired, I can just grill one ribeye and the next day I just feel like $1 million. So it's a rough decision. I know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I just really need to figure out how.
I mean, it can be done. I think even Rich Roll did a stint as a vegan.
Rich Roll is like 100%. And he's like real, like I listen his podcast.
Okay.
That's one of a few podcasts I listen. Yours, his, and a couple more.
Yeah.
But Rich Roll, you don't even, mess with that. Like he's legit, like he will advocate for that. And I don't disagree with that. And I do believe eventually we will have to switch food sources. We cannot feed such a big population in a healthy way. Every time when, even when you go to Costco and you see grass-fed or you see sustainably sourced, you cannot produce Costco level production sustainably, period.
Like
I don't believe in that stuff.
Just in bulk is what you're saying?
Yeah. You cannot. If you see in Costco that amount of stuff, I don't care what the label says. You cannot sustainably produce that.
Yeah, it is difficult though too to supplement that like with all of the high level activity that you want to do to get that protein intake without meat. At least you can see that it's been done by other people that have been successful in that field, but I can definitely see it being a very hard transition to make.
You really have to plan, and at least in the past, I couldn't sustain it.
Yeah.
But it becoming so important to me more than ever. And I'm definitely, but also I'm very like conscious and understand the science behind for women with, bone mineral density, right? And osteoporosis. I do understand that there is also supplements that can help. It's just back again to the supplements.
Yeah.
I'm not against it, but there is nothing more healthier than the real food. No supplement can compensate the real food.
I do think if you can get all of the nutrients you need directly from your foods, that's the best way to go. Yeah. I think it's not always cost effective. And I think also there's an information gap where a lot of people don't have the education or the background to understand how to get that. And so supplements are a really good way for people that aren't there with that knowledge yet.
But also, they don't even know why we're taking those supplements. If you would go to a supplement store now for one thing, I went last year for one thing, okay? And I come in and, I'm just average, like just come in. And man, that they try to sell you stuff. You need it or not. So if you come just like protein, like plant-based protein, whatever, they're going to try to sell additional 4 or 5 stuff that you don't even need. But, greens, natural, greens. Everyone is taking greens.
We got to get Evan in the room. He's not going to like this, Karolina.
Here's the thing. It's nothing wrong to take greens.
Yeah.
But do you actually need them? Like if you eating healthy, balanced diet and you eat salads and you eat greens, you probably don't even need that supplement, okay?
Yeah.
And just because everyone is taking it and it's being promoted, it really doesn't mean you need to take it. So a lot of times people take it just because. Mm-hmm. My sister went to the supplement store for something I forgot already.
Y'all got to stop going to the supplement store. I just order online.
And she didn't leave without, 3, 4 additional things. And I'm like, why? And she's like, oh, I bought some greens. I'm like, why? You are a health freak. She eats very healthy, balanced diet, right? Why do you need that?
She's probably getting too much then.
You don't.
Yeah.
You simply don't. So it's right there, your money. Maybe overdoing greens not gonna damage or it's not gonna negatively impact you. But why?
Do you think there's a link? So earlier, you and I were talking about going into a training block, especially for ultramarathon training, can be very difficult. And it's a lot of resistance you can feel mentally, a lot of friction. And you said that it's the discipline that carries you through. Do you think there's a link between the food that you eat and the level of resistance you feel to training and your capacity to maintain your discipline?
Yeah.
Really?
Eating healthy, balanced diet really has a big impact on our brain functioning. That's nothing surprising, and that everyone knows it, right? Or what kind of food we buy, fast food restaurants versus, farmers market. Those things matter. It has a big impact on our cognitive functioning, a fogginess of the brain.
Oh, yeah.
You can see whatever you want, but those things matter. If you eat like shit a night before, in the morning, you're going to feel like shit.
Yeah.
If you eat healthy, you're going to wake up rested, balanced, ready to hustle. Food is important. And not just say, I eat healthy, but what is that healthy? Where you get sourced. Ribeye steak from Costco and ribeye steak from local farmer that, raise their cattle in a backyard. They also going to be different. Mm-hmm. Because I'm big in antibiotics, I'm big in chemicals, I'm big in, fruits and veggies that, being sprayed. I have a garden in the backyard, okay. In summer I grow my own veggies.
Oh, nice.
And it's purely natural. I like it. And that dirt is a compost that we also have in the backyard. So I don't spray with anything. So when I go there, it's like a mosquito party, okay? So every time I go there, clean up or water, I have to put long pants because there is nothing sprayed, so it attracts everything there. But that's for me is worth it, So just stuff like that really, really matters and add up.
Yeah. For me, it's a lot of the preservatives and the artificial elements that go into it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I do what I got to do to eat whenever I'm hungry. But I do, that has been of interest to me, something I've been more focused on. Evan and I have gotten really big into honey over the last year because of the family farm. And him and I actually just bought a hive this year. So we'll be producing our own honey. And, are you
going to be selling? Can I be a client?
We will be selling eventually. It takes about a year for the bees to build up a new hive. The bees are fascinating. That's a whole other topic. But the goal is to keep buying more hives and producing more honey, because I think that that's something that is not only so good for you, but it's also something that is purely natural, and it's a great source of energy that's healthy for you.
Yeah, I am big advocates for bees too. What we are doing with all the sprays and chemicals and how the bees are suffering, it's very unfortunate. So thank you for advocating for them and really investing into this.
I just think it's really cool. Albert Einstein has a quote along the lines of like, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's pretty much saying if the bees are gone, humans will be gone within 100 years.
That's it.
And like bees are the backbone of
everything,
pretty much everything you see outside that's growing, and that it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, and we keep killing it, right? And it's being really suffering, and the numbers are really disappearing. It's tragic.
Mm-hmm. But bees are also super resilient too.
Yes.
Like as long as you can keep producing queens, then
that's it. Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, yes,
it's very fascinating. I just watched a documentary. Like every time I see something about bees, I'm like always watch. I love bees. I have so much respect to them. I have like a couple plants in the back, and when I go there's always like big bees, like big healthy bees, and I just watch them. I just love them, and I really appreciate it that I have them there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, thank you for visiting me.
You need a hive.
If I will buy a house and have my own property, that's my biggest priority, to have my own garden, to have my house, greenhouse, and the bees. I truly, truly have a lot of respect for bees, and the honey, speaking of, and the energy, and I 100% agree. Back again to the supplements and what you buy and mixed and, processed sugars. Mm-hmm. Again, you cannot beat natural source, clean source.
Yeah.
And not from the grocery store, because, 80-90% of the grocery store honeys now are all diluted with corn syrup. Like there is no more natural honeys at the grocery store.
Yeah, and it was really confusing for me whenever I started like trying to care about what I was eating, and like because I was like, okay, sugar's bad, no sugar in anything. And then I slowly came to realize, like, no, natural sugars are good for you. You're looking for the line that says added sugar. And then you see like 21 grams of it. And you're just like, whoa, like we're eating a lot of sugar that's artificial.
So back again to really understanding sugars are bad for us, or carbohydrates are bad for us, right? And people just like cutting. If you on a diet, and just because grapes are carbohydrates, it doesn't mean you can eliminate. You're eliminating good, healthy stuff. It's just like people just go to extremes and they don't understand. There is nothing wrong to have bananas. There is nothing wrong to have grapes, even though they, sugary and carbohydrates. Leave that stuff alone. Like people just go to such extremes without really understanding.
Yeah.
The healthy diet, healthy food, and really what you need to focus on.
I do believe in the 80-20 rule, though. I will be completely honest. Evan and I, when we get together, there's usually some time that we claim carb loading, and we'll just go buy a pizza. We'll get just everything that's unhealthy under the sun and just have a great time and then go run the next day.
It still makes a difference, right? It's and also keep in mind that our foods, our bodies get used to that crap.
Yeah.
I went to Lithuania in February, and
really?
I went to visit my family.
Oh, nice.
And I grew up there. I left when I was 18, and the thing is, Lithuania maybe still is, but was one of the lowest country that had pesticides.
Really?
Yeah, we just like Europe in general has like really, really big laws on pesticides usage. But Lithuania in 1990s, we pretty, I can firmly say I grew up without pesticides.
That's interesting. How do you think what difference do you think that made?
Huge. But I have to say, when I go there now, I can't eat food that I grew up on.
Really?
My body's no longer used to it. And that just shows, when I go and taste my grandma's milk, it's gross. I grew up on that. We literally at home had grandma's milk, grandma's cheese, grandma's, butter. I can't eat that crap anymore. First of all, it tastes gross. And second, my body's just not used to it. So it just shows that, being in United States, or anyway, just like as an adult, right? Consuming for 14 years sugary milk that is processed and added nonsense changes our metabolism. We adapt to those chemicals.
Yeah. Well, it kind of piggybacking off that, it's interesting. I think we forget that added sugar is actually addictive. And like if you physically were to go cold turkey on added sugar, there's a famous basketball trainer who trained Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. His name's Tim Grover.
Tim Grover. Hey, what?
How do you know Tim?
Hey. When I ran 200 miles, Tim Grover was in my ears for 84 hours,
let's
dude.
Go.
Then I struggle. Tim Grover, man.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love Tim Grover. But anyways, one of the things that, as you know, I'll share it for the listeners, that he would do is whenever he wanted to take on a new athlete and he wanted to test if they were going to be really serious and committed to his training program, because he only trains the best and those who are going to go all in, he made him do a week of a sugar cleanse, no added sugar. And he said that he could tell when his players weren't doing it because they were showing up and they were just fine. But the players who were doing it, they had the physiological signs of they were pale, they were sweating, they were vomiting, they were having all of the reactions if you were addicted to a substance and they were having withdrawals.
Oh yeah,
it was crazy.
Mm-hmm. It's as bad as, okay, that's extreme, but it has similar addictive components that it would have cocaine, and so it is drug. You can say whatever you wanna, but it is drug, and people don't know how to read labels, and it's a big issue. And talking about honey, you have to understand the chemical components. Mm-hmm. Honey is single strain monosaccharide, right? So it means your body absorbs that fast. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have any processed disaccharides, which the more complex the sugar is, the harder for the body to break. So that is those addictive, like additional sugars, right there is your hard to break for your body. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard to break it that it's getting stored as a fat. So your body...
The natural one is, or the added one?
The added ones.
Okay.
Yeah. Because naturals is a single chemical compound strain. Mm-hmm. So it's for bodies very easy to break it and absorb it as a fast energy. So honey is glucose and fructose, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. It's very easy to break it because it's just very single compound, like chemical, monocular.
You're good.
Yes. So you really have to also understand when to take honey. Mm-hmm. If you need a fast energy and you're crashing, honey right there.
Yeah.
But if you need long-term, little bit that would kick out later, then you need to turn into different food sources,
Like almonds, I think you mentioned before.
Fat, yeah.
Yes, you love almonds.
I love almonds. I swear by it. It's been really working for me. And, I would like to talk to people that understand that a little bit better. My kind of opinion is, if I'm crashing and I need quick energy, dates, honey, dry dates are also excellent source. Also like honey.
I don't actually know I don't know if I know what a date is. I've never had a date.
Can you delete this section from
right?
the broadcast? I have upstairs. We can do a food introduction afterwards.
Perfect.
Anyway, you're going to like it and you're going to buy it.
Is it a nut?
Yeah, it's...
Man, everyone's going to be making fun of me for this, but I don't know if I've ever had one.
Continue, please.
Yes, I will.
Dates also is like honey, clean sugar, glucose, fructose, period, right? So it's easy, fast to absorb when you need that quick energy. If you need something, so when you run ultras, you should not only think about now, you should also think about 2-3 hours in. Mm-hmm. So that's where my nuts, almonds come in, because fats are slower to be absorbed and breaked. So I know that as of right now, I don't need energy because I just ate 2 dates. Mm-hmm. But also I'm start consuming nuts, which gonna start kicking in within an hour, 2 or 3. So that's how you kind of build that continued energy source. So you wouldn't max out your glycogen.
That's super interesting. Back to the added sugar question real quick. Could you ever see yourself doing the week cleanse from added sugar? Like, is that something you think you'd ever try?
I would. I actually considering doing some bra cleansing for a couple days. I do my... I don't want to say I don't consume added sugar because I absolutely do. It's just so hidden in everything.
Yep.
But I also very consciously pick stuff that doesn't have a lot of added sugars. But one of the worst food that I consume and has tons of added sugars is dry cranberries. That's like one of my worst food intake that I have that has added sugar a lot.
Yeah.
Do you know what dry cranberries are?
Yes, I've had dry cranberries.
Just check.
Oh man, I opened myself up to fire here.
Just have to check at this point.
No, you're good. I think I would try. I don't know. I think I'm talking myself into right now. I think trying a no added sugar cleanse. I mean, it'd be brutal, but it'd also be kind of interesting, just as a case study for myself. Like, how is this really affecting me?
But you're also planning to train for 100 miles, so
yeah.
So don't deprive yourself from energy that you currently need in order to get your miles in.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because exhausting and beating your body and not providing energy it needs, you might need to pick different time frame.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Talking about this training block that I'm heading into and your training as well, this is a very busy time for myself than you're mentioning for yourself as well. And I'm feeling higher levels of resistance to this than I have previously. Like, I've never had an issue working out. Like, I really enjoy working out, but it's like the difference of working out for 45 minutes to an hour versus going out for a 5-hour run. And it's like, it's a new thing that I'm coming across. And I texted you last night, and you've done your research.
At 9 o'clock at night?
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. But you did your research here, and I wanted to bring it up. It's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. There's been new research come out about this, but I wanted you to kind of break down how that relates to what maybe I'm going through right now.
It's not a new study, and there is really nothing new, to be honest, here, because this is just called life. Mm-hmm. And what I say by it is that people used to do hard things with their daily lives. And I know I'm going a little bit off a topic, but I will get back to it.
Okay.
Back in the day, there was no such a thing as marathon. People just did that every day as their survival. Mm-hmm. My dad was born in 1950 in Soviet Union times. When he went to school, they walked 7 or 8 miles to school and 7-8 miles back home, right? There was no cars, and it's East Europe, so the times were a little bit different than in the United States. But the point is, people used to do hard things every day as just life. Mm-hmm. Farming, labor, fixing their own homes as we progressed. We stopped doing that. And what happens when you stop doing and start losing life skills, what I call, your brain starts deteriorating. You lose the sharpness. Simple example. Another day, I was sitting on a couch with my 13-year-old nephew, and I typing a message, and I say, "Hey, how you spell this word?" Right? And he's brilliant. Like, he's the kid that doesn't have to study.
Oh,
and
nice.
He's like 4.0, like achievements, like, one of those kids that you hate because he doesn't have to study.
Yep.
And you are here busting your ass. So he's one of those kids. Very gifted. And I say, "Do you know how to spell this word?" And he's like, "Hey, Siri, how to..."
He just tossed it to Siri.
Right there. Perfect example of eliminating brain work. Mm-hmm. Google Maps. You don't even have to think where you're going or where you are. You just follow where the the arrow sets to do. Back in the day, taxi drivers, they knew the whole city and they didn't have any GPS. We lose sharpness. We eliminating work that brain needs to do to keep that brain functioning, that cognitive functioning, the engagement. That's why we have coloring books. That's why we have now these additional projects that helps for people to maintain their brain functioning. 10, 20 years ago, that was not a big problem because people had to actually still think. We no longer have to think because of this awesome device called iPhone.
Yeah, there's a lot of apps and things being pushed right now about cognitive function. Do this for 5 minutes a day, and by the time you're 80, you're going to decrease your likelihood of Alzheimer's. But that used to just be a standard practice of, I have to read, I have to, cognitively, you had to perform at a higher level consistently, which helps preserve your brain.
When you last time read a physical book?
Oh, I read them all the time.
Really?
Yeah, I read heavily, very heavily.
So I had an issue that I stopped reading actual physical books.
Oh.
But I listened them.
Yeah.
So I always listen books. Like I never had read so many books.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have listened so many books. But I'm like, what I start noticing that I stop, I lost patience of sitting down in stillness. And I'm like, I have to start reading books. And it's very similar because you have to sit down, open the book, and actually read it and let it to your brain to actually absorb that information. It was like learning how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
I couldn't realize how hard it was to start. I'm like, this is embarrassing. So I force myself now to read not an iPhone, not an actual physical book, to sharpen and to maintain that, to make my brain work.
I've always been a really big reader, so it's something that I've always enjoyed, but especially lately with everything going on with opening the restaurant, I've been loving reading more, and it's pretty dense material. And so the concept of, doing hard things lowers the barrier of friction or resistance that you feel because you do it more regularly. So it's just your norm, which goes back to your comment about discipline being what pulls you through difficult things. When you're in the practice of doing difficult things like that, it just starts to get easier over time. And I think that's kind of the stride I've hit with that, at least. There's definitely other areas of my life that I've got to tighten up, but that is one that I really, really enjoy.
So it's back to ultramarathoning and the work and how it's hard to ultramarathoning really taught me life skills. How to, when life hits and challenges arises, or if you're family with, maybe just daily stuff or work, doesn't matter. If you run ultra marathons and you learn how to go through hard times and we're going to pass and you're going to have more hard times and they're also going to pass. I applied the same rules in my daily life. And man, that taught me some good skills.
Yeah.
How to cope with stress. How to really not allow those negative emotions to take you over, because we're going to pass.
Yes.
Just like the longer the distance, the more meltdowns you're going to have. But we're going to pass. And I think it's the same with our motivation. Okay, so a couple months ago, I came across this one book that I listened.
Didn't read it, but I listened.
And okay, I kind of, it was weird. And I kind of, wasn't intention. It just was like a free book from the library. And I needed something to listen. I was driving. And man, that it was like, dang, this is good. This book is good. It's a guy that was very famous with Pelotons.
Okay.
He's like a face of Pelotons. And I don't even know his name already. Anyway, but he had a rough childhood. My childhood became really nice comparing to his. but he started talking, and couple words that he said was like light bulbs in my head. And I'm literally just quoting his book. It's not my words, but I really started applying in my daily life that it's how important is to have our discipline and routine. Every day, it's Monday or Sunday, and you have to have a discipline. You cannot just, show up for your work at 8 o'clock. You have to have a discipline for yourself. And, expose yourself to hard things to keep you sharper. And then the hard things hit and you lose your motivation. You know what pulls you through? Is your routine and your discipline. Because in that quote, in that book, he said, treat motivation as your electricity, and treat your discipline and routine as your generator. And when you lose electricity in a household, guess what kicks in and pulls you through? The back generator. And right there, I'm like, boom. Because I've been struggling myself in the last 9 months with discipline, with motivation, not discipline, with motivation. Been really struggling to get miles in, to get motivated, to get excited. It's been rough. But I have a really good discipline and routine. Even when I lose motivation at work and I really struggle to show up, I still have a discipline. Every morning, I get up at X amount of time. I always do those things. It becomes part of me. And then I realized that those things, even though I wasn't motivated, my discipline allowed me to keep through going until my electricity gets back.
Yeah. Well, I think directly related to that, I firmly believe that you need a balance of chaos and order in your life in order to live in an excited state. And whenever you
Is that Ryan Holiday?
No, he may have said it. It's Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, sorry, Peterson.
Yeah, you're good.
Wait. You like him too?
Oh, yeah. Evan and I saw him in Florida.
Me too. I saw him in St. Louis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really have a lot of respect for that man.
He speaks so fluently. He's very articulate. But to that point, you got to live in a state of chaos and order in order to live an excited life. And whenever you're purely reactive in your day-to-day because you opted not to have discipline, that discipline, the things that you do, your daily consistencies, was your opportunity to create that order, and it allows you to handle the chaos better.
Yes.
And I think that bringing it back to ultramarathon running for me, one of the interesting things that I feel like I learned from my couple ultramarathons that I've done and just all the training was a healthy dose of disassociation, because you can start to see the cycles that are coming. Like, whenever you're going to be out there trying to do 100 miles, that you're going to be happy, you're going to be sad, you're going to be hungry, you're going to be tired, you may break down at some point. Like, that all of these things are coming and they're very real in the moment, but to be able to realize the cycle and the loop that you're on, compartmentalize it, and then disassociate, that's been really huge for what I'm doing business-wise with the restaurant and everything right now, because you're handling so much at once. And a lot of people, or I think it'd be easier to crack and break, but rather to be able to disassociate from it, fall back to what are my consistencies, allow that to be my dose of chaos for the day. And then I think it just helps me roll with the punches so much better.
Yes. And, having the horse in your life and struggles, guess what? You somehow still continue going through.
We're still here.
We're still here. And that's a big concern now, especially because when I look around and the mental health of our people and motivation, and it's scary.
Yeah.
It's very scary how many people struggle with mental health. It's scary how much violence we have, because it all comes down to mental health, right? And I unfortunately don't see that improving anytime soon. But again, it's what we do to improve our skill sets. Back in the day when people have farms and do hard work and people just their skill sets and their routines and their discipline, taking care of a farm, waking up at 4:00 in the morning, allow them. Those are their coping skills. It's called life skills. People no longer have life skills. So every time the smallest challenge, the struggle comes in, people lose it.
Yeah. And there's definitely, I don't want to discount anyone, but there's different levels of struggle that people are going through. And sometimes, it kind of sounds like an asshole, but sometimes the answer is you need perspective on what difficult actually is.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be instilled by yourself by choosing to do a difficult thing and then realizing, oh, hey, I can actually do hard things, and seeing how that reflects back into your life and builds up new confidence, and plus like the physiological benefits of actually you're moving, the endorphins that get released. Like a lot of times that can be a significant thing to help that situation.
I really, really agree with you because, even when you look in people, when there is challenges, like you said, we're not talking, like we're just talking about generic struggles that can be just perspective.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, is it really that bad? Or you just like get in that bubble? But when you do daily hard things and you challenge yourself, when you do stuff that you don't want to do and you still show up, that's what builds your resistance and the discipline. And then, when the hard times come, I have like one picture I always go back to, like one in a bus, one person sees the mountains, is sad and sees as a darkness, but another person sees as beauty. And right there is your perspective. And then and I think the only way to get that perspective or the attitude is by learning how to expose yourself into hard things. So when the actual hard things hit you, you are prepared. We don't just sit like when we run ultras, we expect the pain. We're running into that. And the more you're going to run into those uncomfortable situations, that's the only way to grow. The only way to grow is to expose yourself into uncomfortable environments.
Karolina, I've loved this conversation. I want to keep piggybacking off it, but I don't want to dilute it because I feel like what we've already said has been really solid. So I think this would be a good natural spot to start wrapping up. I appreciate you coming on.
Gosh, we always had such a good conversation.
Yeah, it's all over the place, but like the common thread of wanting to have a conversation about betterment, what we can do better, how we can become better. And ultramarathon running, of course, is a very common theme. I always thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, it's me too. I really appreciate for always having good conversations and, and again, having people like us in each other's lives. Like we challenge ourselves to be better, to learn from each other, to challenge each other, to learn from each other.
I think it's really cool too because it's just the most random occurrence. Evan and I signed up for a race and someone was doing some weird ultramarathon study and we halfway thought it was a scam. And so we showed up anyways. And now it's like, oh, if we just keep in touch and we catch up every 6 months and it's like a day's passed,
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's all about those opportunities.
Yeah.
It's all about opportunities.
Yep. Karolina, where can people find you online if they want to connect and learn more?
I have Facebook and Instagram accounts, pretty much my first name and my last name, which
I'll link them. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's a challenge. You might gonna need my driving license for my last name. But I do keep up with my social media, especially Instagram. I am planning to post more to embrace my training and struggles that I go through as any other human being.
Yep.
And the perspective I have on how to overcome that. So definitely going to be more context coming.
Yeah, I'm going to clip up this episode and I'll collaborate with you. Are you prepared to go viral again?
It just shows how is important to talk about common sense, like our daily lives, right? To be real. People hungry for the real stuff. And how it's important to just stay relatable.
Yeah. It was mini viral, but still, I clipped up a clip of her and I talking from the last episode. It had like 150,000 or 200,000 views, and to think that many people saw it, I was like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, well, hopefully we're gonna have a round 2.
Yeah, it clearly resonated.
Yeah.
You guys can find me on Instagram at Jacob O'Connor. The podcast is at Real.Conversations. If you guys enjoyed the episode, please make sure to share the link with a friend. I really appreciate it. Karolina, same question as last time. Took you off guard last time. I wonder if you're prepared this time.
Oh boy.
Looking back at this really cool journey you've been on, what advice would you give to your 22-year-old self?
Okay, I totally forgot about this question. And I don't recall my last answer actually, but it might be very similar. I still believe of really exploring and saying yes to opportunities, to keep exposing to do hard things, because that's the only way to build resistance and resilience and become mentally strong. That allows you to really become your best version that you can be.
Thank you for coming on, Karolina.
My pleasure.